Good morning and welcome to CAD-1's presentation of using the Copy Monitor tool in Revit. My name's Stan Henney and I have with me today Tony Crawford,
Good morning, everybody.
Our resident ME who will be presenting today, and we have quite a few of you who signed up, so this will be a good presentation. Let's go ahead and get some things going. Tony, do you want to switch to the
there it goes.
All-important how you do a webinar slide? Most of you have been on webinars, so you know this stuff pretty well. If you want to minimize the console, hit the orange arrow and it'll get it out of the way so you can see the whole screen. There's the raise your hand button, which we like to start every webinar with. Raise your hand if you can hear us. So hopefully we aren't talking to the walls here at CAD-1. Looks like we're pretty good there. A lot of you are raising your hand, and if you want to change between microphone speakers and telephone, you can do that. Most important thing is to ask questions. If you need to ask a question, type it in. We'll try and get an answer as close to in context as we can. We appreciate y'all being here today. Before we get fully started, Tony has a couple polls which we'll do in just a minute to kind of see what the audience is looking at here attending. But we want to remind you that Autodesk's, this is the last week of Autodesk's winter promotions. Friday is the last day, so if you're thinking about buying new seats of one of the suites, Building Design Suite, etc., there is a $1,000 rebate on that. Don't tell your boss, and you can pocket $1,000, I suppose. That's not nice, though. And
sounds like motivation to me.
There's the infamous buy one get one promotion for older software, 2007 and older. You can get basically 2 new seats at half price is what it comes down to, and some other promotions. We won't make a big commercial out of that, but I do need to kind of pass that on to you in case any of you are looking at that. So let's see what you got next here, Tony.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of questions to see who's in the audience today. So go ahead and click on one of those buttons, whether you're architect, engineer, structural.
And I know I see on the list there's several folks from contractors, so I guess you'll go into the other world there. Sorry about that.
Oh, make myself a note.
Don't need to minimize you there.
Yeah. And I really am writing it down for next time. Yeah, because we're getting more and more of that. Okay, looks like 50% of the people right now are architects, about equal between mechanical and electrical. So let's do the next poll. 2 more questions. How long have you been using Revit? I'll leave it up there for just a moment. Less than a year. Have we new users? So far, it's heavier with experienced users, although numbers are changing as everybody's clicking on things. I don't know.
It looks like most people have used it at least a year to 3 years, if not longer. Quite a few have used over 5 years, so that's good to see.
Yeah.
A few have used it for less than a year, and then a few have used it for 3 to 5 years. So good enough.
Yeah, I don't see any way to share that with you, but I've got one more question. Just to see specifically, have you used the Copy Monitor tool before? Have you never used it, or maybe you've tried it, or are you already using it? Just click one of those buttons, and then I'll close this out in just a moment, and then we'll get started on the rest of it. So, okay, looks like quite a few people have already used it, using it on projects.
So we'll try and talk to all levels here as best we can. There's about a third of you have not used it at all, and then a small portion have tried it but not used it much. So it's about pretty close to half and half. So we'll try not to talk down too much, but at the same time give the new folks a chance to kind of get the basics of it as well.
All right. Yeah, I'll close that out.
And by the way, this webinar will be recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel in the fairly near future, probably later this week, early next week, in case you want to slog through it again. And there's all of our other webinars over the past several months that are also there, so a good chance to get a little bit of free mentoring, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Stan. So we're going to take a look, obviously, at using the copy monitor tool in Revit. So just kind of the what and the why, and maybe even the, well, then we'll definitely get into the how. So the what and the why, as you probably already know, working with BIM, coordinating with others, some items can and even should appear in more than one Revit model or BIM model. For example, might appear in the architect's file and in the engineer's Revit model. Specifically, well, levels definitely, but also column grids. Levels and grids are a couple of the obvious things that you want to coordinate. You want them to be the same. Maybe match lines. Perhaps lighting fixtures or plumbing fixtures you want to appear, you know, they've been designed in the architect's file and the engineer, the lighting or plumbing wants to match those. So they can be modeled in both the architect's model and the engineer's model, and Revit can help you to keep track of these to help keep your designs consistent. Some of the, come on, I've already clicked and there it goes.
little bit of lag in the old system today.
Yeah, and I'm watching the final screen so I can see all the lag. Just yeah. So the copy monitor tool, it monitors elements between the host project, which is your project, your live file is the host project. Monitors elements between that host project and the linked model, or you can do it within your own project. And then when one team changes a monitored element, you know, moves something that you're monitoring, like say a level or a grid line, the other teams, as soon as they get that updated file, they're automatically notified so that they're aware of a change and can respond to that. Because if a grid line moves or a level, a second floor moves, third floor, if the ceiling, the floor slab goes up or down, you probably want to know that. Typical workflow is that consultants will copy and monitor levels. Almost everybody does levels from the architecture file or from structure, whoever is controlling the level of the building. The copy monitor that into their own files. And usually, the consultants will copy and monitor the column grids, the grid lines from the architects, or if structural is managing that, you know, from another file into theirs. You can also copy monitor levels and grids, obviously. You can also copy monitor columns or walls, if those are important, or floors, as well as openings. That's the standard copy monitor tool. There's also, well, let me go back to that for just a second. So if you've used Revit in the past, if you had Revit architecture or Revit structure, this was your tool. You had copy and you had monitor. If you had Revit MEP in the past, or now that you have Revit One Box, you also have the batch copy. This can copy all fixtures, plumbing fixtures, lighting fixtures, any number of categories, from a linked file into the current project, and it can automatically copy, you know, 1 to 100, 200 different elements all at once. And if we have time, we should have time, I might have to go through this kind of quickly, but I'll try and cover this towards the end. Some of the things you can copy, monitor using the batch copy, air terminals, data devices, lighting fixtures, electrical fixtures, plumbing fixtures, sprinklers, and a few other categories, but not every single category. And one benefit of this is that once you've done lighting fixtures or plumbing fixtures and you get an updated file, Revit checks the new file for anything in that category that's been added. Even if I haven't monitored, you know, say there was a bathroom that had not been designed yet when I got the previous file. When I get the new one, it looks to see, oh, there's new lighting fixtures, there's new plumbing fixtures in this file. Would you like to copy those into yours? So that is a really useful feature. It lets you know if anything has been added. This one's maybe not quite as super easy, press here and done. It does require a little more setup, a little more post-processing than just copying monitoring. But it can also be very useful. But it does have its own quirks, so we'll take a look at that at the end. So the how. We'll spend most of the time we're looking at the how. We've looked at the what and the why. We'll go through this. So the very, very, very brief explanation is on this slide. First, you have to have the source file linked into your file. Yours is the host. And they have to be visible when you run the command, so that the items you're going to copy, whether it's grid lines, levels, whatever, and then run the copy monitor tool. And that's where we'll spend most of the time today. If the items are copied or even monitored, then you'll have duplicates. You'll have the same column grid lines in the architect's file, for example, that you have linked into yours, as well as having grids in your file. So you probably want to disable the visibility of the source item so that you don't have redundancy, you don't have overlapping ones. And then when it's all said and done, when you get an updated background file, an updated file where you're monitoring something, there's a coordination tool that you can run to review things as required. Did you have some questions, Dan?
Nope, I'm good. We're
all righty. So let's take a look at this. Let me switch over to Revit. And you can see I have a file linked in. If I select it, Revit processes that. It's one big linked file. I don't really have anything of mine in this file yet. It's a brand new file. I've selected the background. You can see it's one link. It's not live walls and windows. There it is. It's one single entity. I just select it, then everything comes up. I'm going to close out of this, go to a floor plan. So essentially, I've just now started setting up a project. I've got as far as linking in the background file.
Where did this file come from, Tony? Is this an Autodesk file, or did it come from a client that let us use it? Or
this one is actually one of my class files.
Okay.
I just had it handy, so I grabbed it, and I knew it had what I needed. I almost grabbed a different one, but for me, I knew this one had what I needed. So yeah, it's nothing very exciting. It's they'll call it a school. You can see there's wings on the left. I have grid lines and I have light fixtures. When we get to the lights, we'll probably focus on this wing, this end of the building. And again, right now, if it's one LinkedIn file, I don't have anything live in my file except some views. So I need these grid lines. I want to copy these in. But before I do that, I really want to have levels so that I can set up views. I have 2 levels already in my file, but let's take a look at those. So to open, I need to be in a view where I can see levels. So that's either a section or an elevation view. Since I have an elevation view, I can just go to this one. I can right-click and choose Go to Elevation View. I can double-click on the triangle part, or I can find it in the project browser. However you want to get to this elevation, because here is where I can see these levels. I'll zoom in on this area. There they are. And again, if I select it, I can see that those are all not mine. They're not live in my host file. And in just a moment there, I can see, so that's the LinkedIn file. Bear with me just a moment. My computer's thinking hard on this, obviously. I do have a couple levels of my own. There they are. I have level 1 and level 2. That's all I have in my file. And I'm going to move these over just so I can see them. So I'm going to click on the small circle grip, zoom out, drag these over. So I can see them side by side. There you can see I have a level 1 and the architect has a level 1. I have a level 2 and the architect has level 2. I have, well, that's all I have. So I need to bring in some of these other levels, as well as, you probably noticed, I should make my level match their level. So let me go ahead and do that. I need to change mine to 13 feet. I just clicked once, clicked twice. I try not to get in the habit of double-clicking too many things in Revit. I clicked twice slowly, and then I can edit that number. I can edit the name. I just typed in 13 space 0. Remember, Revit defaults to feet, so just typing 13 and hitting enter moves that up to 13 feet. If I needed to, I could change the name. The name is actually good on this one. Okay, so now I have these matching. So my views will match for the first floor, second floor, but that's all I have. And also, if something changes, the Revit doesn't notify me. I need to set up the monitoring. I can monitor my level 1 versus the architect's level 1, my level 2 versus the architect's level 2, so that Revit will automatically tell me if there's been a change. So let's take a look at that. Alrighty, on the Collaborate tab, I have the Copy Monitor tools. If I click on that tool, I have 2 options. Use the current project. I don't know that I've ever actually used that one. You can monitor things within your own file. If that's something that you need, perhaps mechanical and electrical are in the same file, and mechanical or electrical is connecting to the mechanical equipment to power it up, or elevators. If I want to monitor that for a change, or maybe a wall. But most of the time I've used this select link. Go ahead and start that command. We're going to ignore that for now. And when in doubt, always look at your status bar. Revit's telling me what to do. It says pick a linked Revit file to monitor. Alrighty, so I'll hover over any part of the LinkedIn file. Basically, I just need to tell it visually which file, if I have more than one. Do I want to click on the structural, the architectural, interior, core and shell? I only have one, so I'm just going to click on that one, and it takes me into sketch mode. If you see the big green check and the big red X, that means it succeeded. If the command just ends, if you miss the building when you click, Revit just ends the command. It doesn't give you any warning, error. It doesn't say you missed. It doesn't say click again. It just stops the command. So if you see these, then you know it worked. All right, now we can, since we already have a level 1, we have a level 2. It's in my file. I don't need to copy them. I can just monitor them. And what the monitor does is it monitors architect's level 1, their level 2, relative to mine, and vice versa, to see if there's any change between them. Start the command. When in doubt, it tells me pick an element to monitor in my status bar. All right, pick an element. I can pick my level 1 versus the architect's level 1. I'll pick my level 2 versus the architect's level 2. Now there's a relationship set up between those two, and you can tell if you select one of your items and see, there it is, this little heart rate monitor symbol. That tells me when I have the item selected that the copy monitor process is going on. That means this line, this level is being monitored. I can also see, whoops, bear with me one second. I'll select it again. I also have a stop monitoring button up at the top. That tells me that's being monitored. Now that I have these two monitored, I can hit finish and close out of this. But I want to demonstrate another way of doing this, so I'm actually going to cancel this. And I'll come back to it, into it again and show you a little more details. I'm going to start kind of slowly and then work up to it. We'll get a little more complicated as we go on. So I'm going to cancel this. Start command all over again. So nothing has changed so far. I'm going to do the same, start the same command again, start the copy monitor. I'm going to choose the select link to tell Revit I want it to monitor from the architect's background file. Select that file, takes me into sketch mode. This time, I think I can use the copy command. Even though I already have a copy, if I take a look at the options, we can see where even if it already exists, and I'm just going to skip right down to the bottom, it says reuse levels with the same name. When that box is checked, it means since I have a level 1, the architect has a level 1, since the names match, the levels match, I can just reuse those, and it won't actually create another duplicate. Alrighty, so let me, we're good here. I'm going to just point out up at the top, I have levels, grids, walls, and floors. These are the 4 different categories that you can monitor, and there's some settings in here using the standard copy monitor command. The batch copy does give us some additional capability. Right now we're just going to look at the levels. In fact, you have some options in here. Do I have, okay, I didn't put another type in there. You do have the option, say, when I copy in from the architect's file, if they're using the 1/4 inch head, I can say, no, I want to use this head, no head, or plenum, or I can have a custom one in here. Or I can say, okay, if it's this type, don't copy it. In this case, there's not a lot of choices, so we're just going to keep it the same, keep things consistent. But I could replace it with one of my elements. Say this is my company standard level symbol or grid symbol. In this case, we're just going to leave it the same. So now that I've taken a look at those and verified that the reuse option is on, I can use the copy command. So I'm going to start that. When in doubt, take a look at the status bar. It says select elements as specified in options. Okay, great. We just looked at the options. So I'm going to copy architect's level 1, architect's level 2. I'm going to go ahead and do all 3 of these, the first 3 roof levels. It tells me that I already had a family with that name. Okay, that's fine. Warnings you can ignore and keep moving. Errors will make you stop. So it made a duplicate there, and it had to do a rename because it couldn't have the exact same name. I'm going to skip the last one. If we have time, I'll come back and show you why I skipped that one. Alrighty, so we've done the copy command. Let's go ahead and finish this, and let's see what happened. Alrighty, I don't see a whole lot of difference until I click on one of these levels. Now I can see, oh, there's duplicates in there. These are live in my file. These I can move around. These I can control. I can control the datums, the extents, where they show up. I can create views now based on these levels. These outside ones, they're not mine. They're not live in my file. They're not on my host file, so I can't control what they look like. I can't do anything with those. Alrighty, so we've got those in here. Looking at my plans, I still have first floor, second floor. I don't have any additional plans, so I can select these views. I can create a view out of those. I can go to my floor there. I can create floor plans. I can create ceiling plans based on these views. If I start this command, you can see, okay, there they are, roof 1, 2, and 3. They've not been done yet. So I still have to go through this step, which is fine. That's the way I did it for years until I stopped to think about it. And there, I think there's a shortcut. And let me show you how that works. So I'm going to cancel that out. You notice I didn't do this last level yet. Say if there's going to be a penthouse, mechanical, elevator room, there's an extra level up here. If I create the level first, let me show you. If I look at, all right, I can just look at the type, my properties. Oh, there we go. Let me try it one more time. Properties of a view, I can go up in here, I can go other places. There's only a couple places to get to this, but it tells me if I create a new view, do I have a view template assigned to that? So when I create a new view, if I create it, it assigns this view template, and I can have that tied to it so it stays dependent upon that view template. I should do a poll to see how many people are using view templates. These can really be a time saver. So right now, any new views are tied to this view template. It's electrical ceiling. I have lots and lots of properties. In fact, all of my visibility graphics are in here, with rare exception, one being work sets.
Tony, let's just ask them. Kind of informal poll. Are any of you using the view templates that Tony's discussing here? Raise your hand if you are. There's a few folks that are, not too many. That's good to see. There's a few folks that know about
there's
it.
Some hands going up. Yeah, those can really be time savers, and you can set up a view template in your project template. Revit uses the term template for multiple things. You can set it up in your project template, and then all those settings are already there. Okay, so I do have that, and let's look at one other place. So let's say I'm going to create a floor plan, and I'm actually going to cancel out of this, but I want to look at a setting. So if I create, oh, here's the other place to get that. If I create a floor plan, it assigns electrical plan to it. If I create a ceiling plan, it also, I have this set to, whoops, have this set to show me the ceiling plan. Yeah, I'm sorry, I assigned the view template to that view, and then all my settings are done. And where's the other place I was going to show you? And of course, I'm drawing a blank right now. Oh, when I start, so I'm going to create a level. So let me show you where that was at again. I'm going to start the level command. It's actually in the architecture tab. So if you're used to using, working in the MEP, you will have to go to the architecture tab to get this tool. I'm going to start a level. When I start the level, take a look at the options bar here. It says make a new, well, let me do that again. Whoopsie. And there we go. I am going to make a plan view. When I create this level, it will automatically create a view or multiple views based on this level. Okay, so if I do it live, then I benefit from that. And I can set the plan view types. So let's see, when it creates this view, I can tell it to create a structural plan or a floor plan or a ceiling plan or both. Okay, so when I'm going to create a level, Revit will automatically create two plans for me, a floor plan and a ceiling plan, and when it creates those plans, it will assign a view template, and when it assigns a view template, it will apply a lot of settings. I counted once, and there was hundreds of settings that it applies when it applies a view template. That can save me a lot of time. Then I don't have to apply those settings manually. So I'm going to recreate their mechanic level. I'm just going to throw it in there. Obviously, I'm not in the same place. I'm going to align it with mine, but you can see the height is different. I'm at 44 feet instead of 45. Just because personally I find it easier. I'm going to finish this command to just put it in there wherever rather than trying to align it, trying to snap to it. And then just type in the number. So I'm going to type in 45 feet. And now I know it's going to be exactly in the right place. Because if I eyeball it, I might be off by a little fraction of an inch, and I don't want that. Okay, so I created this one manually. Now I'm going to go back and do the monitor tool that I talked about earlier and kind of skipped over. I canceled out of that one. Or I could do the copy command. Either way will work, but I'll demonstrate the monitor command. The benefit of adding this manually is now I have 2 more views have been created. And if I go into those views, they already have a view template applied. And the view template applied a ton of settings. You can see they're already in the right place. They're under lighting. That's where I wanted them. There's a lot of settings that have been applied to those. So let's go back to, I'm just looking down at my notes really quick, see if I've skipped anything. All right, I'll demonstrate the monitor command, because right now these can move, they can change, I can rename this. In fact, I'm going to recall this mechanical roof just to match the architect's name. It says we'd like to name the corresponding views. Sure, let's go ahead and do that. And then you see over on the left, mechanical roof, that got renamed also, so it matches. Right now there's still a relationship there, it's still tied together. But I want to make a new relationship between my level roof, mechanical roof, and the architect's level mechanical roof, so that if something changes, Revit will let me know. Same process, start the command, select the link, select any part of the architect's file. Hopefully you can see that there's a blue outline if I hover over it. It also shows me the tooltip if I hover over it, then I know I'm getting it, because if I miss, nothing happens. I clicked, wasn't on the building, the command just ends. I have to do the command again. Select the link, hover over part of it, you see its outline, you can see the tooltip, great. Takes me into sketch mode. This time I'll run the monitor command. I could do either one at this point, but I'll just demonstrate this one. Wherever it tells me, pick an element to monitor. All right, I want my mechanical roof to be monitored versus the architect's mechanical roof. Great, all done. Those two are monitored now. Now, if something changes, Revit will let me know. I can verify that up at the top. I selected my level to stop monitoring. If I zoom out, I see this little monitor symbol. I was calling that, I'm embarrassed to say, I was calling it a lightning bolt symbol for a while until Brian, who does our Revit architecture webinars, his wife is a physical therapist or in the medical field, pointed out it's a heart rate monitor, which seems obvious now that he said it. So yeah, it's the little monitor symbol, like a heart rate monitor. Okay, so now we have levels. I have all these levels in here. They're live in my file. I can work with them. I can move them around. I can create views from them. And I have views created from them. And this part was done automatically. So I think we're done with the levels for now. And of course, if I hadn't been talking and explaining and drawing arrows, would have been done a lot quicker. So,
are there any questions? We've gone through some of that pretty fast here, and just want to give you a chance to pipe up and ask any if you have any. Doesn't look like there are, but
yeah, which is good.
Oh, we got one.
The monitor.
Juliana calls it the Harry Potter mark, monitor mark.
There it is. And if I zoom in, you notice it does not get any bigger. The lightning bolt or the Harry Potter mark or the heart rate monitor. That's the way Revit works. A lot of these on-screen symbols, the temporary symbols, always stay the same size on the screen no matter how much you zoom in. So if you're having trouble selecting something, if you're coming from the CAD world, it might be you're used to zooming in. It might be counterintuitive, but sometimes in Revit it works better if you zoom out if you're having trouble selecting something. Sometimes. Alrighty, so these are done. I'm going to close out of this view. I have all my levels. We'll say I have enough views right now. I'm going to close out of this, and let's take a look at grid lines. Because likewise, I still don't have grid lines, the column grids, done in mine yet. So we'll go same process, but I'm going to add in another little step. Copy monitor, select the link, hover over it. I'm going to grab the only file I have linked in, takes me into sketch mode. And this time, before I do, well, I'm going to start the copy command because I want to copy these. I don't have any in my file, but I'm going to check this button for multiple. When in doubt, always look at your options bar. It's a little green bar across the top. There can be some really useful tools in there. I try to encourage people to be in the habit of looking at that because when you don't look, there'll be something important in there. Like this time, if I check that box, I get another finish button and a cancel button. So I've checked this. I'm going to choose, instead of clicking on these one by one, by one, by one, by one, instead of clicking every single level to copy it, I can just do a window around that. If I hold Command Control, I can do a window around these others. So with 2 strokes, I have all of my grid lines selected. And then what threw me off for a long time, you have to hit the little finish before hitting the big finish. You do have to hit finish the multiple, it tells me that something's been renamed because we had the same family in their file and my file. That's fine. That's pretty normal. And, oh, my big green checkbox disappeared, my big red X. If you look now, I have two tabs, two context-sensitive tabs on the ribbon. I need to go back to this copy monitor one. There it is. There's my big green finish. Because of the way things are selected, there's two things going on. So now I can get back to the finish. Remember to hit the little finish and then the big finish. And now I have Gridlines live in my file. You can see that there's two copies now instead of just having the one. Now there's ones on top of each other. There's some duplicate, maybe redundancy. But these, I can go in here, and this part is a little tedious, and that's why I can hit these checkboxes and turn on all these bubbles. Whew, this could take me a little while. I sure hope I don't have to do this in every view, because that could take a long time. That's something where you get the office intern to come in here and turn all of these. So let's see, I have those on. Let me look at the bottom. Oh, I need to turn some of them off. I'm going to move mine off to the side. Whoops, not that. There we go. So I don't want them at the bottom, but I do want them at the top. Stan, any questions in here? I've got a few more seconds.
No, there's no questions. It's just this is an opportunity for somebody who's good with the API to create something that does that.
Okay, so I got mine cleaned up. So there's a couple things I want to do here. I want to turn off the redundant ones in the LinkedIn file. And gosh, I hope I don't need to go to every single view of mine and turn off these grids. Well, fortunately, there is a tool for that. I'm just going to point that out. I want to select all my grids, select all instances, and view is a quick way to, I've selected one grid, right-click on it. I want to select all my grids in this view. Before I run the tool, Propagate Extents. What that does, if I hover over it, hopefully you can see the tooltip. It tells me it copies the extents and the appearance of datum element to parallel views. What that means is if I'm in a south elevation, it only copies to south and north. I have to go to another view to copy the east and west ones. If I'm in a floor plan, it copies to all the floor plans and ceiling plans, assuming they're not cropped. I think if they're cropped, then it won't do it. Yeah. So I started at Propagate Extents. I want to propagate it to all of these views. So I selected them all, hit OK. Can you imagine if you had to go to every single one of these views and do the same, clicking the check boxes on all these bubbles? That would be a pain in the butt, and I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me before I found that button.
It's funny, Eric asked that question just as you started Propagate Extents, and you answered it for him, so good.
Perfect.
Thanks, Eric.
Sometimes I'm mind reading. I can read minds. I can also predict the future up to 5 minutes in advance. Like, after this, I'm probably going to go to the bathroom. I predicted the future. Sorry, I've got the water bottle over here, and I'm already almost empty. This isn't being recorded, is it?
Yes, it is.
So, all right, so that's in there. I was in ceiling electric. Now let me take a look at the second floor. And, yay, it looks like my grid lines have been propagated. So I don't have to go into all these other views. Close it out. So what else we got going on here? Oh, I still have the redundant ones. I'm going to go into my visibility graphics, go into annotations. If you're a keyboard person like me, VV or VG will take you into this toolbar. It will take you into this dialog box. If I go to annotations, I can find grids. If I hit the first G, or if I hit G on the keyboard, it jumps to the first G. You know, just some tips and tricks to help. Oh, did I say that? I was going to try and point out some tips and tricks and pitfalls as we were going through this. Did that. So I'm going to make my grids halftone, but oh, okay, now the halftone, they're a little less obtrusive, but I still have that redundancy. Now, if I was in the classroom, I'd ask, does anybody know where I can turn that off? Just for engagements. I know it takes a little while to type it. So if anybody knows where to turn it off, if you're a quick typer.
We've got one answer, Revit links.
Revit links. So I go back to my visibility graphics. That would be a correct answer. I'm going to jump over to this last tab in my visibility graphics, Revit links. This is where I can separate or break between all of my settings so far. Because you see, when I selected halftone, all of the grids were halftoned. The ones live in my host file and the ones that were linked in. I have the file on the left, elementary school architecture. It's set to host view. Well, I need to break that, separate or differentiate, I guess. I'm going to click on Host View. That brings up another dialog box. Let's see if I can do this. It's a very similar dialog box. If you haven't seen this, I have in my visibility graphics, there's model categories, there's model categories. I had annotation, and this one is annotation, etc. But there is now one called Basics that I didn't have in mine. So that's the tab it goes to first. First thing I need to do is set this to be custom. That opens up a lot of stuff that allows me to customize the settings. So if I go into annotation categories and do the same thing, set this to custom, that allows me to go down to my grids. If you notice before, these were grayed out. Now I can go to grids. If I turn this off, if I deselect grids, that only affects this one LinkedIn file. So those will disappear and mine will stay on. Now I've separated and differentiated between my visibility graphics and visibility graphics affecting the LinkedIn file. I'll close out of this, hit OK. You see now, previously it said by host view, now it says custom. Close out of that, and there they go. The extra grid lines have now disappeared. So now my view is getting much better. It's getting more usable. I can control the datum of these, where these appear. If you've ever had grid lines where you print it out in a large room or part of a building, and the grid lines just extend out off the edge of the page or through the title block, and you can't control it, that's because you're using the grids that are linked in, most likely. If you have your own grids live in your file, then you can control what they look like. I'm just going to look at my notes. Any questions that have come up?
Well, kind of a question comment. Juliana says that you could do some of that in the view template, and then comments what I was trying to say, that I thought you will do that in the view template so it does all the floors.
That would be an excellent plan. I don't have that set up for this demonstration, just to give me the flexibility to go through and show it. But I mentioned earlier the view templates. Let me see if this one worked. I'm going to the floor plan for the roof. This was the one, that I had Revit create automatically. Okay, so I've not fixed the view template on that one. And for the sake of time, I think I'm going to have to skip that right now. I'd like to demonstrate view templates. But yeah, maybe I don't know.
There's a webinar topic waiting to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if I could fill the whole 45 minutes.
It doesn't have to be that long.
That's true. I always think I'm going to be run short on topics, and they always run long. And on that note, I'm wondering if I want to cover I think I'll go through the batch copy really quickly here. Well, I could go through the batch copy, or I could go through demonstrating what happens when you move it.
Well, why don't you touch on the batch copy real quick,
All
and
right.
then we'll see how much time's left. If we go over 3 or 4 minutes, that'll be okay.
Okay, so I've been going kind of slow and tedious, just demonstrating every step. I'm going to go a little faster now, so if you're writing things down, you might want to just, you can just watch it to see what can be done, maybe not necessarily all the steps. So, get my brain, where was I? Okay, so I'm on first floor ceiling. I've got an electric view rather, floor plan. So I can see the lights, I can see the ceiling grid, but they're not in my file. Those are all in the host file. I don't have really much of anything in my file except for views and now grid lines and levels. So I want to copy all of these in so that I don't have to place every one, for one thing. And it'll copy the exact same light into the exact same place, asterisk. There are some little quirks with this one. So I'm going to start the same process again. Copy monitor, select the link. Don't need to save it. Select my file. Takes me, I missed. Select the link. Click on a part of the architect's file. Now we're going to take a look at these commands on the right. I have batch copy and coordination settings. If you're in older versions of Revit, you might not have those two. First, let's take a look at the coordination settings. These just affect the batch copy. Oh, look, there's all these other things that were not listed in our options earlier. I have electrical equipment, electrical fixtures, lighting fixtures is what I'm going to look at, air terminals, a lot of MEP-specific things. So I've selected lighting fixtures. Then I can go to the right, enable, allow batch copy. And when I do that, it allows me to change mapping behavior. I can change mapping behavior, and which allows me to specify type mapping. If I specify type mapping, something appeared on the left here. I can now do lighting fixtures, or I can do type mapping for lighting fixtures. So I'll specify type mapping. It allows me to go on the left. And here I can specify the type mapping. So the linked file will be on the left and my file on the right. On the left I have an emergency recess light. Let's change that. Instead of copying the original, I want to do my company's standard emergency recess light. So the ones on the right, this is what I have to choose from. These are the blocks, the families that are loaded in my file. And you can see it says company standard, CAD-1. Those are the ones that I've customized or you've customized for your own company. They have, say, MEP connectors on them. They're the ones that have what you need as a designer. The 2x4, I have 2 lamp. I can do the same thing. See, there's a troffer, 2 lamp. And again, it's got the company standard name in there. And see if I can do, there we go. Same 2x4 parabolic, 4 lamp, but it's mine. So that what that does is it not only copies in the elements, copies in the lighting fixtures, it changes them. So it's not the same element, which may or may not have connectors on it, may not have the fittings that you need. It swaps it out for your light, for the family that you like. I'm going to save and close out of this, and now I can run the batch copy command. And Stan, this is where you have a couple minutes if you want to talk about the promotions again, because this might take a moment to crunch and bring in, possibly hundreds of light fixtures, copying them in, bringing in their locations, bringing in orientation, and replacing them with the ones that I've designated to replace them with.
Yeah, we have a question from Eric, and I'll read that. It's pretty involved, but it's a very good question. And then we'll get to it if we have some time. He says, would you please go over the way to quickly adapt to changes using the coordination review? For example, plumbing fixtures are all copied and monitored, and the architect, Mr. Architect, moves them all. Is there a way to accept the differences quickly, or do I have to go line by line in the coordination review?
That's a good question. And for me to really demonstrate that, I'd have to open the architect's file, move some stuff, save it, and I'm running a little tight on time. So I can't demonstrate that. But when you're in the coordination review dialog box, you can expand them, I believe, and select them all with the control key, and then change them globally. It doesn't look like you can, but when I've tried it, it worked. There might have been a little tweaks, and I'm still waiting on my computer to finish. So the short version is it doesn't look like you can, but you can. If you choose to do the drop-down boxes, select them, all the ones that you want to change. Choose the drop-down for the first one or the last one. Change that one, and they all change. The wording might not reflect the right element. But when I've tried it, it does seem to work. And we're still waiting on Revit to copy in hundreds of, I think there's in the low 200s fixtures. It might be less than 200. Okay, cool. So that looks like that answered it.
And so that gives us another idea, Eric, for a potential webinar topic. So we'll look into that, because I think coordination is becoming a bigger and bigger issue as people become more mature in using Revit. They want to know how to really work well with other people on the project. It is still clicking away, so I want to bring up something that just to kind of help those of you who are in the business. Some of you it won't matter to, others it should matter to. Autodesk is changing the way they're delivering a lot of their software and services and so forth. It's been a several-year process, and it will continue to continue over the next couple years. So the first of the Autodesk fiscal year is February 1st, and that will not really bring about any major changes this year. The 2015 software will be out most likely in the late March, April timeframe, as it is every year. But it is an important time, some things to remember. The 2008 software will be retiring and no longer upgradable after about March 15th. So if you have older software of any sort, you may want to get that upgraded. And then there's a couple other things that will be happening next year that are very important. Next year, a year from February 1st, Autodesk will no longer be upgrading software at all. You will need to be on subscription. They will, of course, sell new licenses. They will have their rental software, project-based software rentals, and they will have subscription. So you will need to be on subscription. A lot more things are going to come via the cloud and so forth over the next couple years, services that come with your software. So start thinking of some of those things as you go into the new year.
True. Yeah. Then there's definitely some changes. So you can see it did finish, and you're right. Well, this is a pretty small file. When I practiced yesterday, it went quicker when I was not running the GoToMeeting and the broadcast and everything there. And I toyed with actually using a larger file. But yeah, this can take a little while, especially if your computer's running other things. But it finished. You can see I have a lighting fixture here. If I move it, there's still the original underneath it. I'm going to hit undo on that because, actually I'm going to leave it there. Well, if I have time, I'm going to try and demonstrate for Eric's question maybe. Revit told me that, warning, I moved that light where Revit says, warning, coordination monitor alert, relative position of two fixtures changed. That's the coordination monitor, the copy monitor process and work. I can move an object and Revit warns me that they're no longer the same. Or if the architect moves an object, Revit warns me that they're no longer the same. And then I can go to the coordination monitor, coordination review, and review those individually or somewhat globally. And you've probably noticed that it didn't put them in the exact same place. I'm going to go very quickly. That's probably the biggest hiccup, the biggest issue with the batch copy. It has to do with the insertion point. And let me see if I can guess the right one. So I've opened up my family, and again, I'm going very quickly. You just mostly see that this can be done. I want to make my insertion point, my defined origin, which is essentially my insertion point. So I've selected this lower grid line, reference plane. I'm going to make that my origin instead of the center. Previously it was the center, and we'll see if I guessed right on the top or the bottom. I'm loading that back into my family, and it looks like I guessed wrong. Now they all moved over to the other side. So I can go in there and I can change the insertion point, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go back in there. I could go one more time and then pick the right one.
But real quick, just by changing the insertion point on the family, that's how you go about correcting that.
Yeah, and sometimes they might be flipped, they might be upside down, or the corners might be the same. So it's not perfect. You might have to go in there and move them around. So some people like it, some people don't. It's something to take a look at anyway. See if it'll work for your firm. Alrighty. So we looked at the how. Went kind of quickly through it. So yeah, when they're flipped, I usually either look at the insertion point, or I will maybe select it and turn off the monitoring, flip it back around, and then run the monitoring again. Maybe it depends on personal preferences, company practices. So just a very quick review. We use the copy monitor. Just about everybody uses it for grids, for levels, and almost everybody uses it for grids. You have within that you have the option to monitor. If the items already exist in both files. If they don't exist, you can use a copy. And you can look at more, efficiency. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Some tools in the view settings that can save you some time. If you have, when you create a level, Revit creates views. When Revit creates the views, it assigns the view templates, and within the view templates are a lot of settings. So just by doing a couple of steps, you can have Revit do many steps for you, and it really increases the efficiency if you have it set up ahead of time. For fixtures, we did a quick look at the batch copy, and we did notice you have to be mindful of the origins, the insertion points, to reduce or just be aware that there can be location issues on depending on how things are put together. Some best practices with this. Know that overuse, if you copy monitor too many things or just monitoring too many things, can slow down Revit. So maybe you don't want to monitor every single wall, every single column, every single item. It can slow it down, especially on bigger projects. Something to be around file names. After you establish monitoring, it's best not to change the file names for the linked model or for your current projects. Also, if you're doing some columns between architecture and structural, if you do grids, it's best to not associate the grids with the scope box if you're doing that until after you've copied the grids into your host model. If you're going between architectural and structural, you can use a copy monitor tool to copy a floor from an architectural model into your structural model. You can also, kind of a trick for the MEP people, if you get something, a file from the architect, or download it from a manufacturer, and the manufacturer, maybe they're not using Revit, but they're making Revit families, and so they made all their lights ceiling hosted, or their electrical items wall hosted, specifically wall hosted or ceiling hosted. You cannot use those in your MEP file because you don't have a live wall or a live ceiling. You only have a LinkedIn file. So they won't work in yours. But the trick, kind of a workaround, is you can use this copy monitor process to change the objects from wall hosted or ceiling hosted to be face hosted. Revit won't let you change those in the families, but Revit will change it. So it can be kind of a workaround. I'm sure there's more information on that if that sounds like it's something useful for you. So finally, were there any last questions? I do have a couple more slides.
Doesn't look like there's any other questions right now. We've got a couple minutes, so type them in if you need to.
I'll give you just a minute to type, and then we'll take a look at, and I'll bring this one up again, so you're in the middle of reading it. Some upcoming events.
Okay, so we've got another webinar on January 23rd, which is Thursday, on InfoWorks, creating an existing model. InfoWorks is a very interesting tool that's going to affect a lot of us in the building industry, even though right now it's kind of civil-oriented or civil-seeming, especially if you're doing planning and things like that. It's well worth taking a look at as the industries bleed together here in the coming years, and more crossover that's available due to the technologies that are Autodesk and other companies are putting out there. We have a Revit Architecture Fundamentals class on February 10th through the 13th. There's still room in that. We have a Revit Structure Fundamentals class on February 12th through the 14th. If you're thinking about signing up for that one, check with us. We have a client who wants a private class that same week, and if we don't get anybody to sign up for the Revit Structure class within the next few days, that may be canceled or moved into the early March time frame. So check with us on that one. And then Tony himself is going to be teaching a Revit MEP Fundamentals class on March 4th through the 7th. So we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, and I don't know where everybody is listening in from or watching in from. I know I've had students from California, from Texas, and I forget where else. It doesn't have to be here. If you do, I think ski season is still going on. I don't know how long does ski season last, Stan?
Well, usually into early April.
Yeah, that sounds good. You can make a weekend out of it. After the class, you can go hit the slopes. What was I going to say? Oh, there is a live in-person Revit, or BIM rather, Rocky Mountain BIM Users Group is meeting tonight. I believe it's at Oz Architecture. I'm not positive of the location. But if you just Google Rhombus, R-O-M-B-I-S, and they use Meetup as their website for coordinating locations, that'll be tonight. It's Revit in general. All disciplines are there. Building owners, contractors are there typically. So it's good to have an in-person meeting. I think tonight's topic is coordination between disciplines, between teams. Oh, I got another slide. Sorry, I thought I already clicked that over. We do have a couple of things. We can do mobile training. We can go to different locations. We do have certification. If you took an exam at Autodesk University, then you know what the retake is. You already have. If you have the voucher, that's what that's for. If you don't have that, don't worry about it. If you do want to get certified in Revit, specifically Revit Architecture, there's also certification in AutoCAD, Civil 3D.
If you want to come in for Autodesk certification on Valentine's Day, be sure to bring your sweetie. It's a great way to spend some time together.
To spend the afternoon taking Yeah.
And so with that, as you can see, we offer a lot of services, BIM implementation services, facilities management services, construction coordination, implementation services, so forth and so on. We are representatives for Autodesk, of course, Bluebeam, and one that's not up here but that we represent is BIM Shift's DataGate products. So let us know. And Tony, do you have any others? There we go. Like us on Facebook and tweet us on Twitter. And with that, we will close for today. Juliana, I see your question, and I'm going to pass that over to Tony just because it's kind of involved a little bit more personal, and then we'll see if we can get you an answer on that. Thanks very much. And with that, see you on the flip side. Bye now.